Yes, I-Maa-Ra, another edition of what we call name Read and Reason. And this week I'm gonna come from this book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. Seeing? And Education for Underdevelopment. Wow. Along the Nile in North Africa, in Ethiopia, in Western Sudan, and along the East African coast, a minority of Africans became literate, producing a situation comparable to that of Asia and Europe before the latter part of the 19th century. As in other parts of the world, literacy in Africa was connected with religion, so that in Islamic countries it was a Quranic education, and in Christian Ethiopia the education was designed to train priests and monks. Muslim education was particularly extensive at the primary level, and it was also available at the secondary and university levels. In Egypt there was the Al-Azhar University, in Morocco the University of Fez, and in Mali the University of Timbuktu, all testimony to the standard of education achieved in Africa before the colonial intrusion. The colonizer did not introduce education into Africa. They introduced a new set of formal education institutions which partly supplemented and partly replaced those which were there before. The colonial system also stimulated values and practices which amounted to new informal education. The main purpose of the colonial school system was to train Africans to help man the local administration at the lowest ranks and to staff the private capitalist firms owned by Europeans. In effect, that meant selecting a few Africans to participate in the domination and exploitation of the continent as a whole. It was not an education system grew out of the African environment, or one that was designed to promote the most rational use of material and social resources. It was not an educational system designed to give young people confidence and pride as members of African societies, but one which sought to instill a sense of deference towards all that was European and capitalist. Education in Europe was dominated by the capitalist class. The same class bias was automatically transferred to Africa, and to make matters worse, the racism and cultural boastfulness harbored by capitalism were also included in the package of colonial education. Colonial schooling was education for subordination, exploitation, the creation of mental confusion, and the development of underdevelopment. The development of underdevelopment. Seeing? Now look at it. We see it play out among us as African people. Most of who we call the so-called leaders among us, you know what I mean, who have been trained by the European educational system or the colonial educational system, you realize that their mission is not for the fundamental liberation of the Africans, but working in the interest of the colonial structure to maintain that colonial structure. So hence what you have is the underdevelopment of the African minds. And imagine, the colonial masters design a project to keep us in subordination and to continue with them exploitation. The sad thing about it, leaders who are supposed to understand the history of where we are coming from participate in maintaining that kind of structure, which is a colonial education. The funny thing about it, I'm reading from an author, Walter Rodney, who was a radical and have that desire for the upliftment and the liberation of Africans through education. While he was in Canada and returned to Jamaica in 1968, the Jamaican Prime Minister at that time was I-Maa-Ra, you know, who deemed him persona non grata. See? And you know what happened in October 1968? Big riot, because, you know, he couldn't even come off of the plane, you understand? And what was the mission of Walter Rodney as a black intellectual at the time? Was to really share his knowledge, and he was preaching and teaching black empowerment. And a black prime minister said something wrong with that. You understand? To go further, I-Maa-Ra was one of the men who was known for banning black books. All a book named Black Beauty. I-Maa-Ra banned that. Any book with Malcolm X and him banned them thing there. See? But it was, you know, ironic to know, says the same I-Maa-Ra who licked out against the apartheid regime in South Africa and have nothing to do with that. And at the same time, he was here opposing a black liberator, a black conscious intellectual who was sharing his wisdom and his knowledge with people around the university, Ellison Flat and these places, Augustown, you know what I mean, Dunkirk. Seeing, you know, Walter Rodney was very active with other brothers, you know, who was a part of the Rastafarian movement. Seeing, so where we are today in Jamaica, we see the same thing go on. We see the same thing happen with those who have been trained by the system. We don't see the growth. We don't see where the black people are in control of, we call them, the capital. We are still servant or providing service for the colonial system. So, how we are going to change this? We have to find a new way. We have to find an African-centered education system. You know what I mean? To bring forth that fundamental liberation for us to become owners of our intellectual property, owners of the resources, you know, of the resources that we partake and produce. You understand? So, this is what we are talking about. Our reason, our read, what we get out of an education system, how much it is empowering us, how much it is leading us to the kind of liberation that we want. You know what I mean? Political liberation, economic liberation, because that is paramount within this time. You know what I mean? Right now we see ourselves shifting or drifting to what we call the new industrial or the fourth industrial revolution. What kind of system and policy are us African putting in place to design a system that will work for us and not, you know, keep following what the same colonial masters and their heirs and their and their lineage putting in place, you know, to rule and manipulate our children. You know, we can't remain in perpetual slavery. We have to find a way to get out of that. See? So, we're not in the underdevelopment of mind, we're in the liberation of minds, you know what I mean? So those who believe that I-Maa-Ra is a great man, boy, I can't understand. That is like a traitor to our ancestors. It's like a traitor to Paul Bogle, Bedward, Marcus Garvey, Leonard Howell, all these black liberators who stood up for our liberation. You know what I mean? These are the people that we must highlight. And these are the people that their statues and murals should be all around Jamaica. Not someone like a I-Maa-Ra who never in and nothing with black power and black consciousness. We don't see how that work. You know what I mean? If we're in a black, you know, predominantly nation or country, you know what I mean? We are the one who's supposed to be in control of the resources. Why other nations rule and why other people control it and we are just mere servants and consumers. So, now we're keep up the time too long, because guess what? It's read and reason, see? And sometimes we get carried away and just go and talk. But guess what? The people keep reading another edition of Read and Reason. I-Maa-Ra. musical revolutionary.